Hello. What you're about to see is my long-awaited take on The Thing, the 2011 prequel to the 1982 classic John Carpenter film. One of my all-time favorite movies, actually. A lot of you were wondering what I thought of the prequel, if I was going to see the prequel, and if so, what did I think of it? And, well, I finally saw the prequel. And as I'm sure you can imagine, I had quite a lot to say about it. So much so, in fact, that we're going to split it up into two parts. Yeah, I actually rambled for close to 47 minutes about the film and comparing it to the old one and briefly showing most of my The Thing collection and stuff like that. So, yeah, so this is part one. And then we'll end very abruptly in the middle of things to, throw it to be continued on, and then we'll finish it up in part two. So enjoy part one. Just wanted to let you know that this is going to be a two-parter. So, I know a lot of times I post two parts and people watch part one and only half of you watch part two. Well, all of you watch part two. Seriously. Because part two is where it gets all ranty and stuff, and you don't want to miss that. But there's lots of good stuff in this part too. So watch both parts. If you watch this, I expect you to watch the other one too. I'll be watching. I'll be watching you to make sure you're watching. All right, enjoy. Greetings, everyone. Well, today I'm going to talk about a movie that a lot of you have been asking me about quite a bit over the past, I don't know, year. Has it really been a year? No, I don't think it's been a year. Maybe half a year, 8 months. Anyway, a while. And, well, I've finally seen it, and I've got a lot to say about it. What am I talking about? Well, of course, I am talking about The Thing. No. The Thing. No. The Thing? No. Ah! The Thing! No. Aha! The Thing. Today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Yeah, I have a lot of things about The Thing. Well, I guess just to give you the quick rundown here, of course we have the anamorphic version of the DVD with all the extras intact quite nicely. All the extras carrying over all the way back to the days of the special edition Laserdisc. Which I also used to own. I also used to own the standalone Laserdisc, which was just the movie, but in widescreen. And that was a big deal for me at the time because it was the first time I'd ever seen it in widescreen. This, of course, is the 1982 version, the John Carpenter version. I do not have the 1950s Howard Hawks version, The Thing from Another World. I will pick it up eventually. I have seen it, and I will get it to sort of round out the collection. But, I mean, without question, the 1982 version is my all-time favorite. And then, of course, I have the Blu-ray edition. This is the UK Blu-ray edition, sent to me recently by good old David Bunch of Numbers, which basically is the only edition that out there that sort of does it right. Well, at least compared to the North American release, because it has all the extras intact and untouched and unaltered. So, it's a very nice carryover from the DVD edition. And the transfer's not bad. There's a little bit of DNR issues on there. It's not horrible. The HD DVD actually looks better, but, well, HD DVD is not around anymore, so it's kind of a moot point. This, of course, is the PlayStation 2 game, which is actually a sequel to the 1982 version. And quite a good one, too, I might add. At the time of this recording, I have never managed to finish this game. I have played it twice. I've never finished it. Perhaps in the near future, we will attempt a third time. And you may actually get to be a part of that in some way. That's all I'm going to say for now. Then, of course, excuse me, I have the novelization of the 1982 movie, adapted by Alan Dean Foster. Interesting to note, it seems to have been adapted from an earlier draft of the script, because the novel actually features quite a few scenes and moments that are not in the final film. I also have a couple of comic books which are buried away in the collection somewhere. I think I showed them actually in one of my reviews a while ago. A while back, I actually did an in-depth review of the 1982 film. This is just sort of to quickly show you my Thing collection as it stands right now. I no longer have the Laserdiscs, unfortunately. It just seemed to be kind of redundant because I've got all these editions here. Yeah, so anyway, the latest addition to the Thing legacy is, of course, the 2011 film, also titled The Thing, just to make things more confusing. So we're going to take all of this stuff down, and we're just going to talk about this, and how it relates to this, and what I, as a lifelong fan of this, think of this. Okay, so let's get to it. Where to begin? Well, the 1982 film, which shall heretofore be referred to as the original. I know a lot of people say, well, the 1950s version is the original, but I've said this before, I'll say it again. I do not consider the 1982 film to be a remake of the 1950s film, and it irritates me when people call it a remake, because it's not a remake. It is another adaptation of the same story, namely Who Goes There by John W. Campbell, which was a short story. And the 1982 version is actually far more faithful to that story, apparently, than the 1950s version, which was, a nice little claustrophobic sci-fi horror movie, but essentially just a fairly by-the-numbers monster movie. Whereas John Carpenter's version takes it in some pretty wild directions. But if you want to see more of what I thought of that and, my thoughts on that, I'll give you a link to the in-depth review I did of that movie in the description. So, the prequel. I was kind of cautiously optimistic when I heard that they were doing... At first, I heard it was going to be a remake, and I think I was not alone in, saying, no, don't do that, please. I would really prefer you to not do that. And, apparently even the producers of the film did not want to do that, because they themselves have said they considered John Carpenter's version to be pretty much a perfect movie, and to remake it would be a disservice to the fans and to the legacy of the film. So if they were going to do something in that universe, they wanted to do it in a way that did not detract from the original film. So they didn't want to do it as a remake. So instead they decided to go the prequel route, because there was this wonderful little opportunity, as one reviewer put it, to answer questions that for the past 30 years fans have not been asking. Yeah, basically questions that we haven't been asking and didn't need answers to, but if you're going to answer those questions, at least try to do a good job of it. So they decided to go the prequel route and basically tell us, by the way, before I proceed any further, this review will be full of spoilers for both films, most likely. I haven't planned much out other than a few sort of key points. But yeah, expect some spoilers ahead just in case you have not seen the films. And just to avoid confusion, I'm going to take this one down. There's 2 movies, not 3. This is the 82 version. This is the 2011 version. So there'll be some spoilers ahead. So anyway, they decided to go the prequel route because, of course, at the beginning of the original film, they go to the Norwegian base, the Norwegian team, the Norwegian scientific team being the team that discovered the thing and discovered the spaceship originally, and they sort of see the aftermath of everything. There's dead bodies all over the place. They find some burned remains of one of the thing creatures. They find the site of the spaceship crash and everything, and they bring back a lot of evidence with them from the Norwegian camp, and over the course of the movie kind of piece together what happened and realize that the same thing is happening at their camp as well, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, the type of evidence that they uncover at the Norwegian base in the original film kind of means that certain events are set in stone. Because, for example, one of the big things they found was videos. They found videos that the Norwegian team had taken of their discovery and how they dealt with it, and, you know, a lot of just stuff that they did surrounding that. And we see bits and pieces of those videos in the movie. Yeah, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. But there was a lot of little clues and whatnot throughout that, you know, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say build a prequel off of that and say, well, let's see what happened. Let's see what the full story is of what happened at the Norwegian base. And that's what the 2011 film attempts to show us. So when I first heard that that was the route they were going, I was kind of excited. I mean, I was cautiously optimistic because, I mean, we know that remakes these days, there's a lot of them. And, you know, remakes, sequels, prequels to established classics that we've all grown up with and loved. And they tend to be kind of hit and miss. In some cases, they work really well. Like, for example, Tron Legacy. I think Tron Legacy was a fantastic expansion of the Tron world, you know, the Tron universe. Because it was done as a proper sequel. It wasn't done as a remake. It was done as a proper sequel, follow-up, literally set like 20, 25 years after the original. And you had a lot of the same actors coming back, and it just served as a wonderful extension of the story. So, you know, that was an example where it could work very well. The fourth Rambo movie, you know, I thought it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I thought it was a worthy addition, and a worthy addition to the franchise, and a great conclusion to the story. I mean, it gave us a really nice kind of epilogue for the John Rambo character. I've not seen the last Rocky movie, but, you know, and there's others that some would say didn't work so well, like the fourth Indiana Jones movie, which I personally didn't have any big issues with. But yeah, I don't think it's as good as the originals, for sure. I don't think it's a total write-off like a lot of people do, but maybe that's another story for another time. Actually, I think I've already talked about it in other videos. So anyway, so the whole idea of not doing it as a remake, but doing it as an extension of the existing material and in some way to add to the existing mythos, I like that idea because it can work when it's done properly and done well. You know, I think Tron Legacy is probably the best example in recent years, anyway, of that being successful. You know, and they've expanded on it further with you know, TV series and stuff. So it's doing really well, and I think there's another sequel in the works which is going to expand on it even further. You know, it's more successful now than it's ever been before. It was more just a cult thing before, but anyway. So yeah, I like the idea of the prequel. So the big question is, how well does it work as a prequel? Well, there are some moments in the film that actually connect up with the original very well. And others just kind of left me scratching my head saying, well, why did they do that like that instead of the way we know that happened based on what we've seen for the past 30 years in the original? So ways in which it connected up nicely. Well, there's the whole thing of the axe in the door, for example, that they discover when MacReady and Doc are checking out or in Copper rather, are checking out the Norwegian base at the beginning of the 82 movie. So there's the axe in the door. You get a source for the guy who cut his own throat and slit his own wrists. You see that guy. There's actually a deleted scene that actually shows him doing that as well. So that was a nice connection. So it was nice to see that, and then when it finishes, he's basically in the same position as the body they discover in the original. So that was a nice connection. They do. I'll talk about this a little bit more in a few minutes, but they do a source for the so-called split face thing, which is probably one of the most famous sculptures and famous images from the original film in terms of the creature effects. It's the one with the two faces kind of disjointed and smushed half together, and one of them's in like extreme, it appears to be in extreme agony. Just an amazing sculpture job by Rob Bottin, who was the lead creature designer on the original, and it's just fantastic. That creature, that image was actually the very first thing I ever saw from The Thing. It was like a magazine article. I remember there was a friend of my father's, was a dentist, and in his dental office he had a whole bunch of magazines. So I mean, we would just go and hang out and visit with him sometimes. And I remember sitting in his office while my dad was visiting with, chatting with his friend, and flipping through a magazine, and there was this big article about The Thing, and it showed the split face creature in there, and I was like 9-10 years old when this originally came out. So I was looking at it, and I was just like, oh my god, like that. I mean, at first, I was amazed by just how horrifying it looked, but at the same time, it really creeped me out. Like as a kid, I was just like, that is like the creepiest, freakiest thing I've ever seen. And it wasn't until a few years later I finally got to see the movie on home video when I was 12. Yeah, it was actually the first R-rated movie I ever saw. I was 12 years old when I first saw The Thing, and yeah, it scared the shit out of me. I loved it, but it scared the shit out of me. But yeah, the whole split face creature, I mean, that's always been a very famous, image and creature from the original. I mean, it's the one they discover at the Norwegian base and bring back, and it starts the horror at the American base. But in the prequel, we actually see a source for that. We actually get to see the two people that it started off as, and who were kind of merging together. And what are some other... Oh, the best connection. This moment I really, really liked. And I think it was the most effective, connection to the original film. And that was the final scene of the movie. It actually plays over the credits. In the deleted scenes, you can see it without the credits. It's just the scene itself as a standalone scene. But plays throughout the credits, where basically the helicopter comes down and picks up the guy who Lars, who is basically one of the last, I guess quite possibly the last survivor. We don't really know what happened to what's her face, Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character, but Kate, I think her name was, Kate Lloyd was her character's name, but we don't really find out definitively what happened to Kate. It's just kind of left ambiguous, but so Lars shows up and goes off in the chopper, and they're going off to chase the dog, and that basically leads straight into the opening scene of the 1982 film. And I thought they matched that up really well. I mean, the helicopter looks pretty much identical to the helicopter from the original film, and even the costumes that the actors are wearing. I mean, obviously it's not going to be the same actors because it's 30 years later, but the costumes that they're wearing match very well. And I thought that was the best sort of connection between the two. Now, some of the problems I had with it. It's not a perfect prequel by any stretch. In fact, there's some ways in which you have all these nice things that they did to connect it up with what they discover in the camp in the original, but then you have all these other things that don't connect up, and it's not just little things, it's big things that fans of the original know how that happened, and there is just, as far as I'm concerned, if we were shown definitively how something happened in the original, then that's not something you fuck around with. That's not something you change in the prequel. Because if you change that in the prequel, it's like time travel. You can't go back and change history. It's like things happened the way they happened, and that's the way they will always happen. So if you're going to do a prequel to something that is well established and base it on clues from the original, you have to remain consistent with that. So I watched the movie, and I was left kind of scratching my head on a couple of points. And I was like, why did they do that way? So before doing this video, I actually spent a couple of days going through the extras and IMDb and everything, looking for reasons why they did, like, what was their reasoning for that? So there's one event in particular that I had a major issue with in this film, and I think fans of the 82 version will probably back me up on this. And then the reason they gave for it was just ridiculous.